What's up everyone, Bradley Jack Design here with another design breakdown. This time we're going to look at this Coby White graphic I made when he made 7 threes in 1/4, which is a NBA rookie record and a Chicago Bulls record. Repping my Chicago Bulls today, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what it took to make this design. This is a pretty simple design, so this is going to be a shorter video than some of the other designs I've made. But let me turn everything off here and just break it down layer by layer on what it took to make this graphic. So first, it started off, I've got a red background. I've got another layer here. This layer is the shadows that happen to be in the same photo of the photo of Coby that I used in this. And this has a blur set to it, a tilt shift blur on it. So it's only showing up here and it blurs out on its way up. And that's because I just wanted this to be the focus in the background, just to be some textures that aren't really necessarily important. So the main bulk of this graphic is this Coby White image. So here it is cut out, and then I have a layer on top of it of the edited. So this is before, this is after editing. So let me hop in, let's just take a look at what I did to edit this photo. So there's a bunch of stuff in here, as you can see, that I guess I didn't use. Some stuff under here that doesn't really matter. So I have some general editing that I do on all of my photos. So I've got some camera raw, some unsharpening, I've got a channel mixer, and a hue and saturation layer that I use on a lot of my photos that I use for my designs. So one thing that's interesting about this, so Coby White's hair is ridiculous. So you see I've got an extra layer here for his hair. So I turn that off and turn it on. This is an extra layer that I went ahead, and I don't remember how I determined this to be cut out, but I went ahead and painted only back in this area here. One thing I've seen that works pretty well, you can see it's not perfect in some of these spots, is using a brush to take out part of the hair that might look like hair. So like I've got on here, let me find one, Brad's brushes. So I have this sand splash brush. So I mean, I could go in here and select this here. Let's give myself a black brush. And you can see if I paint on it, I'm painting in this sort of sand texture, but it can kind of get away with being hair as well. So that's the edited photo of Coby that we've got. I went ahead and added a layer on top of that to paint back in some black. So some of the red in the original lighting from the original image, I went ahead and got rid of that. I've got a hue and saturation layer to turn the rest of his hair from the red tint that was in the original image to make it black as well. Went ahead and made his sneakers have a little bit of a reflection of red instead of orange, because the floor is red and not orange like a court. And then I've got some curves layers to highlight and low light, or add more contrast with the highlights and the low lights. So it starts with this Coby White image. I've got a 7 that I threw in here. That's just in a nice serif font, Craw Modern URW. I went ahead and selected this layer of Coby by holding down the Command key. And I went ahead and just made a shadow from it and moved it over to the left a little bit, masked it to the 7, and then blurred it a little bit and set it to a low opacity just so it looked like there was a faint shadow on the 7, just to give more depth. And then after that, it's pretty much some text. So I thought it'd be cool to have the text with some shapes behind it. As you can see here, I just drew some rectangles. Did some lowercase text because I thought it looked nice, and some very small print of NBA rookie record. Then we have some stats, which I did the same thing with. So if you zoom in here, just minutes. He had 27 minutes this game. He was 8 for 14, yada yada, so on and so forth. And I went ahead and made this text small because it's good to have a lot of contrast in your designs with multiple elements, with color, which you can see I have this white, which contrasts well with this background. I have this big, huge 7, which contrasts well with the tiny stats that I have here as well. So it's good to have contrast in size, contrast in color. That is a good thing to have in your designs overall. Then we've got some textures and overlays, which really add a lot to the graphic. So in most of my designs, if you've seen these before, I've got a lens dirt that I made this specific size. Then I have a gradient map on top of that to change the colors. Then I have this texture file that's sort of a paper texture that I have multiplied on top of the graphic overall. I have a little bit of a lighting effect from the top because when this photo was taken, all the lights are coming from the top. I went ahead and changed that to be red as well. And then I've got some overlays. So I've got a teal orange plus contrast set to 20%. I have a Kodak, what do we got here? 2395 set to 20%, and then a soft warming on top to make everything a little bit more red. So this is what we have as the final file. Now, one extra thing I've done, which I do on a lot of my graphics, is save that out as a JPEG, threw it back in, and I added a lens correction, a radial blur to this one, and filter gallery. What did I do in the filter gallery? What did I use here? Oh, I added some film grain. So you can see here, I added just a little bit of grain to it. So 3 with 1 and 2 are the settings for that. So what I then did was I masked it to only affect the outside areas. So I know what I did that. I wanted some grain, so when I used this radial blur to blur on the outside, the radial blur is set to zoom. Let me pull that up for you guys. So the radial blur is set to zoom at a low %, and that makes it so it looks like everything is bursting out from the center. So I wanted some grain to be in there so it had a little bit more contrast. And then I used a lens correction to distort the image as well, which you can see here. I changed the red and cyan fringe to -100 and a little bit of a distortion of +4.7. And you can see if I turn off this filter mask, this is what it looks like. So clearly this, it gets rid of the graphic. You can't really see this well because it's blurry. So I went ahead and just took a brush and put it onto that filter mask to make this Coby White design. So a simple just stat graphic, a lot of contrast with the text with Coby in the front, some editing that looks nice on Coby, and a little bit of blurring and some overlays for some depth. That's what I did to make this design. So I hope you learned something from this. If you have any suggestions for videos you want to see from me in the future, go ahead and drop a comment below. Other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.